Good day, distinguished viewers. Welcome to today's edition of Eko Learners Support for NECO and WAEC candidates. My name is Salau Abubakar Laoluwa. I'm teaching you history. Today, we'll be looking at Borno in the 19th century. We'll be examining Borno in the year 19th century. At the end of the lesson, the objectives we are aiming to achieve include: at the end of the lesson, students will be able to examine the Fulani Jihadist attack on Borno Empire, highlight the reasons for the rise of El-Kanemi to prominence in the 19th century in Borno Empire, also enumerate the reason for the fall of Borno Empire in the 19th century. Now, we'll look at Borno in the 19th century. It is important to know that Kanem Borno is a very big and vast empire in Africa. But after the demise of Idris Aloma, the great empire he left behind started facing one challenges after the other, and they were not as great as they are during the time of Idris Aloma. And in the 19th century, series of events happened in the empire, which is Borno Empire, that is very important and significant to note. And the very first thing that we need to look at in Borno Empire in the 19th century is the attack of the Fulani Jihadists. The Sokoto Jihad that is being led by Usman Dan Fodio in 1804 spread across even beyond the Hausa city-state. It spread to the western part of what we know today as Nigeria, which is the Yoruba land, and also to other parts of the region, of the West African region. And it also spread to Borno as an empire, which is very close to them in the Sahel region. So the Borno had succeeded in taking, though the Jihadists succeeded in taking the western part of the kingdom due to the presence of social decadence in this area. But it is important to know that the attack on Borno was led by three jihadists, namely Ibrahim Zaki, Goni Mokhtar, and Buba Yero. But despite this the attack, Borno Empire was very strong and firm. And the man, which is the king and the leader of the empire during that time, realized that his power is not enough and adequate to forestall the eventual collapse of the empire into the hand of the Sokoto Jihadists. And this is the reason why the man, the king, called on the assistance of El-Kanemi, who was living in Ghana. And El-Kanemi is a Muslim scholar who has a lot of followers and is very prominent in the region at that time. And the assistance, through the assistance of El-Kanemi, it is important to know that the Sokoto Jihadist attack was being forestalled and they are being sent back to their Hausa city-state area of dominance. And it is also important to know that El-Kanemi and his army were able to stop the incursion of the Fulani Jihadists, and the Mai Dunami, who was then the Mai of Borno Empire, greatly rewarded El-Kanemi for his assistance towards the execution of war and the protection of the Borno kingdom. And the compensation that is being given to El-Kanemi really assisted him in coming to prominence. And this coming to prominence of El-Kanemi actually contributed to the demise of the Safwa dynasty, who are actually ruling the Borno Empire as at that time. Now we'll look at the reason for the rise of Muhammad ibn El-Kanemi to power. It is important to know that when Muhammad El-Kanemi rise to power, he also rivaled the current dynasty that was ruling the Borno Empire at that time. And his rise to power is what led to the creation of a new dynasty in Borno State, which is ruling to the present moment, which is the Shehu dynasty in Borno. His prominence and the rise of power and his contribution to Borno State to Borno Empire as at then is what led to the creation of a new dynasty that is ruling, and the fall of the Safawa dynasty that was previously ruling the Kanem Borno Empire. And when we are looking at what actually led to this transformation in Borno Empire in the 1960s, we examine the factors that influenced the rise of El-Kanemi. The first one is the Fulani Jihadist attack. Initially, if the Fulani Jihadists had not attacked Borno Empire, the need to call for the assistance of El-Kanemi by the Mai Donami would not have arises. So the attack by the Fulani Jihadists is a very first factor that contributed his rise to prominence. Then the second one is the personality of El-Kanemi. El-Kanemi himself is a man of astute personality. He is a teacher, he is a leader, he is a scholar, and he is a good manager of resources. All this personality that is embodied in him is also part of the reason that makes him rise to prominence. Also, we look at the accusation of syncretism, which is mixing of Islamic practice with traditional practice by the ruling dynasty, is also another factor that led to his prominence, because he is preaching pure Islamic practice among the people of Borno as at that time. Also, we will look at the incapability of Mai Donami. Just as I said earlier, after the death of Idris Aloma as Mai of Kanem Borno Empire, all other leaders has not been as strong, as firm as he is, and all the other Mai that has been coming to position after him are weak, which also the Mai Donami, which also include Mai Donami, which was the Mai in the Borno Empire during the time of El-Kanemi in 19th century. Also, we look at the desire to defend Borno. El-Kanemi has the desire to defend his people, and this desire actually earned him a lot of followers who has more belief in him than the ruling Mai. And also the defeat of the Jihadists by El-Kanemi. His military power and proficiency in managing war and articulation of war is also a reason that contributed to his rise to power. And the compensation, lastly, the compensation from Mai Donami. It is important to know that the compensation given to El-Kanemi by Mai Donami is not only in resources, it's also in land mass. And the land mass that was being carved and given to El-Kanemi is equated to half of the then Kanem Borno Empire. So this vast land that was given to him to rule over and to have control over is what also earned him a lot of respect among his people, a lot of dedicated followers, a lot of loyalists, and which rise him to prominence. Now we'll look at the contribution of El-Kanemi to Borno. After his rise to power, after his rivalry with the ruling dynasty, he made a significant contribution to the Borno system as at then that is very important to examine. And some of these include: 1, the establishment of the Sheikh or Shehu dynasty. And the establishment of this dynasty is the establishment of this dynasty is a great contribution to Borno Empire, because the dynasty is what actually survives today, and the ruling dynasty of Borno as we have a Borno state, though it is important to know that the Borno then is larger than what we have today as Borno state in Nigeria. Also, the movement of the capital from Ngazagamu to Kukawa, he also makes sure that he established his own capital territory, which quickly become a large metropolitan state, and also changes the geographical landscape of Borno as at then. And also we look at the organization of the tax system. The taxation system within Borno was being reorganized from what it is before. It makes sure that the current tax system, the tax regime that is being introduced by him, is well accepted by people because it is much more easier and convenient for them to operate. And also we look at the development of Kukawa as an international trade center. He encouraged a lot of traders to come to Kukawa because as at then, before his rise to prominence, the trans-Sahara trade along that axis has started declining a lot. But the rise of El-Kanemi also lead to the rise of the trade, and the trade actually flourished for a long time through his influence before his eventual final demise. Also, we look at the reformation of Islamic religion and Quranic education, because part of the things he, as an Islamic scholar by himself, he also makes sure that he reorganized, though Islamic education has been in existence in Kanem Borno Empire in previous time, but he makes sure that he reforms them and bring new innovation to teaching and establishment of new educational centers. Also, the building of cavalry from the Shua tribe. He also makes sure that he built a cavalry section for the military of the Borno then for proper defense, and he rearranged the military strategy and military formations. Also, the improvement of diplomatic relations by welcoming Denham and Cleparton to Borno in 1822. As at then, he sees it as having diplomatic relations by welcoming these two, not knowing that those are the things that will eventually lead to the coming of the Europeans and the final fall of Borno Empire into their hand. But it is important to know that he has a diplomatic relation with them, and they have treaties that are being signed. Now we look at Borno under Shehu Umar. Shehu Umar is the successor of El-Kanemi of Borno, because as at the time of El-Kanemi, he is only sharing power with the then Safwa dynasty. But after his demise, the Shehu Umar is someone that actually amassed a lot of influence and progressed the work of El-Kanemi. And part of the contribution of Shehu Umar as a Shehu of Borno after the demise of the old ruling dynasty include he adopted some of the symbol of political authority and system of Saifawa dynasty by making sure that the position of three important women in the Kanem Borno Empire then is being retained, by making sure that his mother take the position of Ya Magira, which is the my mother, and his senior wife take the position of Ya Gumsu. And also the introduction of military system of Kazala. He makes sure that the slave within Borno Empire then are not just being left to be destitute or to be exploited. He established a military formation for them to make sure that they also feel among and elevate their status within the Borno Empire. Also, the expansion of military system to include his family. Unlike previously, when the ruling elite make sure that their family does not participate in military activities, he also make a changes to this to make sure that his own family also participated in war occupation, and also recognition given to the fiefs and titles. He makes sure that the traditional he gives recognition to village heads who are fiefs and serfs to him, and also the reorganization of the army, which I have mentioned previously, and encouragement of African merchants to settle in Kukawa. He also make sure that he encourage more merchants. Apart from those Sahara trade routes, he also encourage other people within the region to come to Kukawa to trade and have a good economic prosperity, and also the development of central markets. Now, we look at the reason for the fall of Borno in the 19th century. Despite the contribution of El-Kanemi, despite the rise, the creation of new dynasty, despite the contribution of Shehu Umar as the Shehu of Borno during his time, it is important to know that Borno as an empire eventually falls despite the transformation and the movement from one dynastic rule to a new dynastic rule. Borno eventually falls to the rule of external influence, and that was the colonial era and the coming of the colonial rule. Then the reasons that actually led to the eventual fall of Borno as an empire, as an independent empire in the 19th century, include struggle for power between the Shua and Kanuri people, which caused division. It is important to know that El-Kanemi and his people are of the Shua people, while the previous Seifawa dynasty are of the Kanuri tribe. So the rivalry between these two people as a result of the fall of the former ruling dynasty and the creation of a new dynasty actually led to the eventual fall, because there is a division and the empire is no longer in harmony as it used to be before. Also, Borno lost its trade to the Sokoto in the west. The loss of the Trans-Sahara trade route to Borno, which now becomes the major attraction, is also another factor. Also, the loss of the eastern Trans-Sahara trade route control. Also, the peasants were neglected by the dynasty, and the dynasty made demand on the meager resources of the poor through tax, increase in corruption practice after the Shehu Umar, and also the emergence of Rabi from the eastern Sudan, and the invasion of the British and French for the control of the region. All these factors cumulated together to actually lead to the eventual fall of Borno Empire. Now we'll go to the question. The practice question says, highlight reasons for the fall of Sokoto Jihad of 19th century in Kanem, Borno. We are to examine that despite the success of the Sokoto Jihad in a lot of regions, even spreading its tentacles to the western part of current Nigeria, taking over Ilorin, which is a Yoruba land, why does the jihad fail in Kanem Borno Empire? The reason is, first, the support of El-Kanemi. The support given by El-Kanemi to defend the Borno is an important factor that led to the failure of the jihad. Also, the military superiority of the Kanuri people and the support of the Shua tribe to the ruling El-Kanemi, which is the Mai, is also a very important factor that led to the defeat of the Fulani invaders. Also, the support from his people. The Mai was able to get support of the people, unlike what the ruling Hausa leaders were not able to get. Their people actually turned against them. The Sarkin within the Hausa society lost the support of their people, which the ruling dynasty, which is the Mai in El-Kanemi, which is the Mai, actually get from his people. Then the ideological challenges, as the jihad is a war against non-people, and it is believed that Borno during that time is a Muslim state, so there is no ideological justification for the execution of the jihad in Borno, which actually makes it lose popularity. And also the composition and conduct of the military personnel. Unlike Borno, that has a standing military army of its own, that has several years of military experience as a result of war execution that they've gained, the Fulani warriors are just slaves and marauders who are after raiding and pillaging. So they are not well disciplined compared to the military formation of the Borno state. All these reasons coupled together are why the Sokoto Jihad fails in Borno state.
Acing your WAEC and NECO examinations has been made easy by the Lagos State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education with the Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO Candidates television program. Join seasoned teachers as they take you through these core subjects, targeting the exact syllabus of WAEC and NECO. Watch Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates through these social media platforms to access more educational content and give their feedback. Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates. Pass your examinations with flying colors.
Thank you very much. That's the end of today's session. Please, if you have any contribution or comment, don't hesitate to get in touch with us through the comment section or through the social media handle that is displayed on the screen. Thank you.